Welcome, FNews57 here. Once again, I'm back on my Xbox One, and today I'm bringing you yet another video for the game Outriders. Today's video is going to be a little bit more in-depth, and it's going to cover multiple things. It will be what to do with your gear. Should you sell it? Should you dismantle it? Or possibly should you upgrade it? A crafting guide. In the process of this video, we will also unlock an achievement, so you could consider this a achievement guide for the achievement Hard Bargainer, currently a rare achievement with less than a 6% unlock rate worth 15 gamer score. There is also a in-game accolade associated with selling items as well, so you could consider it an accolade guide. But before we start and go too far in depth, we're in the very first section of the game, which is where a sell vendor is actually located. And I will mention right off the bat that you do have a stash. So if there's items that you wish to keep, you can put them in your stash like so. And you can store up to 100 items. This stash is accessible to all characters that you have. So just keep that in mind if you want to transfer items between one character or another. Now, with that being said, you're going to get a lot of gear in this game, and this game does have a very unique system in the fact that there is a crafting system to it. Unfortunately, the crafting system is not ideal, and we'll cover that. So here in the very first town that you come to, there's going to be two vendors that you can actually sell stuff to. You get this vendor by doing a side quest, and she sells you weapons and stuff a little bit cheaper than the other vendor does. So we're going to go over here where no NPCs are going to bother us and take a look at what we should do. Now for the achievement, you do have to sell 300 items, which is very easy to do. The accolade, I believe you have to sell, it's either 500 or 1,000 items in total, which, again, relatively easy to do because you're going to pick up a lot of gear. One thing that I recommend to do when you start playing is I do recommend that you change this options setting. Go into your options menu and go down to your auto loot minimum rarity. I recommend turning that down to unusual, so this way you don't have to actually bother picking up any items. Whenever you fast travel to a new area, finish a quest, or die, anything that's on the ground will be vacuumed up into your inventory. If your inventory is full, it'll go to your stash. If your stash is full, it'll automatically be scrapped or dismantled. So, moving from there, we have a bunch of gear in our inventory. You can sell the unwanted items, and let's take a look at what the benefits from doing each thing is. So I'll cover them in order. Selling an item is very, very simple. Now what you need to do is you need to go to a vendor in order to sell an item. And the only thing that you're going to get from it is you're going to get scrap, which scrap is the base currency. And I really haven't found much of a use for scrap. If there's a weapon or a gear piece that you really want, something along those lines, then sure, you could buy it. But most of the time, the vendors are only going to have marginal weapons, and they're going to be green, maybe blue, with like one special item that's on sale. I really wouldn't recommend buying them. The only thing that I would recommend buying them for is if they have a specific mod that you don't already have in your collection for crafting. I was getting ahead of myself there. But of course, you can buy them for scrap. They do cost quite a bit to buy, like even with the discount. These blue guns are like 11,000 scrap. Green guns are 5,000 scrap. It's pretty crazy, especially on the higher world tiers. The other thing you can do is you can sell your guns and equipment, but you'll notice you don't get a whole lot of scrap for them. There's also really no reputation or anything like that to speak of with these vendors. So when it comes to selling items, the only thing that I would recommend that you actually sell to a vendor is junk that you don't really care about. Personally, I only sell greens because they're really not worth it for much of anything else. You can sell an item individually, like so. You can also hover over an item, make sure it's not an item that you want to save, but you can hover over an item and be like, okay, I don't want this item, so you can mark it, and that only marks it with like the recycle symbol, which means you can use that to scrap, or you can use that to sell items in bulk. So if there's items that you don't want, like on this world tier, I'm getting a lot of blues, and I already have the mods unlocked for my crafting menu, so I don't really need to save them, but I would overall recommend that you do save them, because saving them and scrapping them would be better than selling them. But we are after an achievement, so any unwanted items for this purpose, you can just go ahead and scrap. If you don't want to keep them, scrap them. Well, sell them for the achievement at least. So we've got 11 items there selected. Now we can press and hold Y, and it will sell all of those items, giving us more scrap. And there you go. There is your hard bargainer achievement if you're going for that. So, moving on from the scrapping of items to a more important system, which is dismantling items. You notice I mentioned a few things about that earlier. So, if there is a gun that you have, or a piece of gear that you have, and you want the mod from it, you can choose to dismantle an item. And we do that with the very same process that we did with selling items. Works the same way. You can sell them individually, or you can choose to select multiple ones. You can do this for any rarity of item. It doesn't really matter. The more rare the item, the more beneficial it would be to scrap it. And when you look at an item, I call it scrap, but technically the term is dismantle. It will show you what the item is, and there will be a little shard symbol on one of the stats. That shard symbol is the shard type that you get when you dismantle it. So I'm going to go ahead and dismantle this mask. It's very similar to the mask that I have on, which obviously it's going to be different depending upon your build. That mask actually might be good for me, so we'll go ahead and save that one. But let's dismantle this purple one so you can see everything that you get from that. So for this one, I'll get max health as the shard type, and if I don't already have the mods, I'll get the mods. And you can do so simply by, now for this, you have to select it, and then you can dismantle it. Now, when you dismantle epic and legendary items, they will give you titanium, but normally, like your unusual green items and your rare blue items, they will give you leather if they're armor, they will give you iron if they're a weapon, and if they're white items, they will just give you basic scrap. So you can look at the shards that you have, and you notice I've done a lot of farming, so I have a lot of shards. These shards are used in upgrading, and so is the iron currency, the leather currency, and the titanium, which I find I go through a lot more leather than I do iron, so just keep that in mind. There's also a functionality that you can quick mark, so if you pick up a lot of green items, you can just hit the quick mark button and then go ahead and dismantle all of those. But most importantly, if there is a mod on the weapon that you don't already have, then it will go into your mod unlock. That includes these basic mods and the like tier 2, tier 1, tier 3 armor and weapon mods. There's also an achievement associated with collecting those. Last but not least is the upgrade or crafting system. And I'll make a separate video touching on everything to do with crafting, because the crafting system in this game leaves a lot to be desired. But once you get this particular NPC, which is towards the end of the first city, then you'll be able to talk to him and upgrade your gear at any of the major cities where he's at. In which case, it will first show you your equipped gear, and then it'll show you your weapons and armors. So you can choose any of those items and go into crafting. But crafting requires resources, and we get those resources by dismantling other gear. So as a general rule, you're going to mainly want to dismantle items. And you might get items of the same thing, even legendaries. Now, legendaries, like I have 2 of the exact same pistol I farmed in the demo, which obviously they're obsolete right now. So we're going to go ahead and dismantle the lower damage version, and you'll see the 2 mods unlocked. So if we dismantle that, we get 2 titanium, we get the Judgment Enforcer 3, and the other one I actually already had unlocked. So now, if you want to craft and upgrade your equipment, like I said, the crafting system leaves a lot to be desired, but it can be useful. If you get like 90% of what you want on an item, then you can go ahead and upgrade it. So you have several options. If we look at like the legendary, obviously we can't improve the rarity of it because that only works on green and blue items. But we do have the option to raise the attributes. This uses shards. It uses more shards the higher level the gun is. So you get those shards by scrapping. You can also change a mod on this. So here is your selection of tier 1 mods, assuming you've already scrapped weapons and gear that has those mods on it. And then, of course, you have your selection of tier 2 mods and your selection of tier 3 mods. Now, the tier 3 mods I've only ever seen on legendaries, so it's going to be hard to get. But the tier 1 show up on rare and epic items, and tier 2 show up on epic items as well. So just keep that in mind. Of course, if you hover over an unlocked mod, you can see where you can place it in either mod slot 1 or mod slot 2, and it would only require iron to do so. However, you can only change 1 mod on any piece of equipment, whether it be weapon or armor. Once you change that mod, only that mod slot can ever be changed again. So keep that in mind if you're trying to build the perfect piece of armor or the perfect weapon or something of that nature. For instance, a prime example that I wanted to show is this particular helmet. If we look at this particular helmet, you'll notice that I've already changed this mod slot there, mod slot 1. So if I want to change a mod, it is locked. Mod slot 2 is locked. I can't change it. Super annoying. But it's, and I just pressed the B button. You have to be careful. Don't press the B button because you'll back out of that menu. Now, the other things that you can do with this crafting system, in addition to upgrading the rarity, which is more helpful for lower new players, and upgrading the attributes on it, there's a couple tips that I want to give. One, it costs a ridiculous load of titanium to upgrade the rarity. So I have this rifle right here that I would like to upgrade, and if I want to improve the rarity, it's okay to improve it from green to blue, but to go from blue to purple, it costs 50 titanium, which titanium is relatively hard to get. So be very careful about doing that. Also, if you're going to raise the attribute level, do not raise the attribute level until your weapon is at max level, which is going to depend on what your character level is. Because this is another option. You can level up the weapon. Now, depending on the rarity of the weapon is going to determine the maximum level that you can level it up to. And as a general rule for green and blue items, it's going to either cost leather or iron, depending on whether they're a weapon or a armor piece. However, it is going to randomize the stat values for the stats on that weapon. That's why you see those question marks there. So make sure that you level up your weapon first, or your weapon is already max level before you increase the attributes. Otherwise, you'll simply just be wasting those shards. The last option is swap variant. You'll notice as you level up, you'll have access to different variants of weapons that have different abilities. For instance, this is a standard bolt action rifle, but I could change the variant to lightweight. And what that would do is change it from a single shot rifle to basically a full auto rifle, giving us a much better fire rate, double magazine size, a little faster reload, and surprisingly a higher crit multiplier. However, we would suffer because we go from 1030 damage down to 601, so not really worth it on a sniper type weapon, but on other weapons it affects magazine capacity and things of that nature. Like, for instance, this bolt action rifle is already a lightweight variant, so if we wanted to swap the variant on this one and we went to a standard variant, this would actually turn it into a better sniper rifle. While the stability, magazine size, rate of fire, and crit multiplier would go down, the damage would go considerably higher. And then, of course, depending on your build, you can change those mods. Now, this is not exactly an ideal roll, because remember, we can only change one mod slot, and we cannot change, no matter how much we want to, the actual stats. So the crafting system does leave a lot to be desired, but there's still a lot of tweaking that you can go ahead and do to make maybe a gear piece that you find that works really well for you. Like, I have this gear piece that works really well for me. I want to keep it. It's awesome, but it's getting a little low for my levels, so maybe I want to go ahead and level it up, which would be fine, except for the fact that it's an epic item, and the moment that you get into epics, they start costing titanium, which again, titanium is a harder resource to come by. So I would pretty much recommend not spending the titanium to upgrade it, and just play along until you get a better item than that. Once you're at max level and world tier, then the crafting system will become more important to you. And if you wish to min-max your equipment, you're going to have to do a lot of farming to get gear that has mostly what you want on it, except for like one mod slot, which you'll then be able to change if you want to. Last thing to note, I did mention that there was a couple of accolades associated with this. So there are accolades for selling items to a vendor. The highest level is 1,000. There's accolades for harvesting iron ore, opening treasure chests, collecting titanium, drop pod resources, which is an end game thing, and of course collecting the mods, which there's an achievement for that as well. And then there's accolades associated with exchanging mods, improving the rarity, improving attributes, collecting weapons, outfits, dismantling so many pieces of gear, and obtaining so many pieces of leather and iron as well. So just keep in mind you're going to get those accolades, which the accolades aren't that important. They only translate to cosmetic items. However, if you are an achievement hunter, they do translate to accolade level 10 achievement, and they also translate to the bin everywhere done it all achievement, which is reach accolade level 20. So just keep that in mind. If you want 100% the game, you're going to need those. Now, I do hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask. This was designed to be more of an entry-level video, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the crafting and min-maxing once I actually get to World Tier 15 max level, which we're fairly close on, but unfortunately the servers for this game have been very unstable, so I haven't been able to play as much as I would have liked to. In any case, hit me up if you have any questions. I'll do my best to help. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button because it greatly helps me out with the searchability of videos here on YouTube. Until next time, my fellow Outriders, stay frosty.